Where are we so far? We've posed two questions. What is a soulmate? And what is the real reason you haven't found yours yet? We're beginning our search for trying to understand the real underlying problem of why people don't find soulmates. We begin that search in the age of marriage. Now, by today's standards, the 1950s, the age of marriage was a crazy time when it came to relationships. We're coming out of World War II, and there's a big acceleration towards marriage. It becomes a huge societal push. It becomes crazy. We want to get people into relationships. How crazy? Check this out. Preteens, as young as 11 or 12, they're encouraged to date. One social psychologist wrote that couples who were truly ready for sex, they should marry. If you didn't, it was moral cowardice. In the 1950s, marriage becomes almost universal. 70% of the adults were married. As a matter of fact, if you were single, you were thought to be neurotic or immoral. By 1959, 47% of all the brides were under the age of 19. And the coup de grace. Divorce was verboten. Couldn't get a divorce. That's a very different time than today. But if you think about it, it's not too much of a surprise because the reasons for marriage back then are also different than they are today. See, back in the 50s, marriage really wasn't about love. It was about security and partnership. I mean, he brings home the bacon, she fries it up in a pan to serve to him and the children. This whole concept that we have of marriage strictly for romantic love won't arrive for a couple of decades. Obviously, there's some element of love, but that's not even a primary or overriding factor. In the 50s, marriage is more pragmatic and less romantic. It's about a partnership that's grown over a long period of time. You gotta think about it as life partners. People met, they focused on what was matching, they decided if they'd make a good partner, and over the course of a long courtship, they learned to adapt to each other. If they discovered a little bit of love, they married. Big question though. If you could look inside of one of those 1950s marriages, what do you think we'd see? Would we see June and Ward Cleaver? Would we see their television, calm, harmonious, easygoing, leave it to Beaver times marriage? Or do you think that they found after they married, they mismatched more than they matched? Was their partnership friction-filled and contentious? Did she bite off his head every time that he didn't see things her way? And remember that these couples knew a lot less than you do about what makes for a good partnership, and they couldn't get divorced later. So I think it's likely that the 50s marriages were not really all that well matched, and they had a lot of mismatches which created the friction and required people to work at their relationships. Now, with all of this friction, what do you think these people needed to calm their volatile and mismatched but couldn't get divorced marriages? They needed the relationship therapist. And we're going to talk about the relationship therapist in our next segment. The takeaway is that the age of marriage couples were not likely well matched and they couldn't get divorced. And this is the setup that leads us to a place now where we don't find soulmates. So that's what we need to remember. Age of marriage, not well matched, couldn't get divorced. This becomes our setup. Up next, we're going to talk about the relationship therapist coming up.